Good evening, and welcome to Nightmare Theater, Episode 8, where we'll be discussing Premonitory Dreams. I'm Sandor Desmond with the Forgotten Grove, and first up on the itinerary, we're going to be, of course, doing the presentation. I got two fantastic emails this week, because last week I did ask, in anticipation of today, for you to send me nightmares of your premonitory dreams, so I actually really liked, I got two emails, and I liked both of them, so I actually included them into the presentation, because I thought they were really good examples. So we'll talk about the viewer-submitted, I guess they're not necessarily nightmares, but we'll be talking about the viewer-submitted dreams as part of the presentation towards the end. And then we'll get into some nightmares from Reddit, as usual. But should be pretty interesting. Let's get into this. Oh, I forgot to press my buttons. Just a second. Okay, looks good. Whoops. So as mentioned, we're going to be talking about premonitory dreams. And what these are dreams that appear to show you the future. So an event happens in the dream, and then going forward into the future, the thing appears to actually occur. So you would then think that, oh, well, this dream predicted the future. It's a premonitory dream. So in general, precognition, also known as prescience, future vision, or future sight, is a claimed psychic ability to see events in the future. And as with other paranormal phenomena, there's no accepted scientific evidence that precognition is a real effect, and it's widely considered to be pseudoscience. Precognition also appears to violate the principle of causality, in that the effect cannot occur before its cause. And nevertheless, precognition has been widely believed throughout history. Many people believe that it's real, and it has been widely reported and remains a topic of research and discussion within the parapsychology community. Premonitory dreams are thought to be extremely vivid, as reported by those who've had them. Extremely vivid as far as dreams go in general, which, as we all know, can be extremely vivid in the first place. But they occur in much more realistic circumstances than regular dreams. So, you'll have a dream that feels real, but there will also be, glaring elements of it that are obviously only make sense within the dream. For a premonitory dream, down to the last detail, everything seems like real life, even after you wake up. Which is one thing that's interesting about them. So there are many people that have claimed to experience premonitory dreams at least once in their life. So in the ancient world, precognition has been associated with trance and dream states involved in phenomena such as prophecy, fortune-telling, and second sight, as well as waking premonitions. These phenomena were widely accepted, and reports have persisted throughout history, with most instances appearing in dreams. So, dreams are sort of the primary avenue by which the precognition occurs. Claims of seeing the future have never been without their skeptical critics. Aristotle, for one, carried out an inquiry into allegedly prophetic dreams in his writing on divination in sleep, and he accepted that it is quite conceivable that some dreams may be tokens and causes of future events, but also believed that most so-called prophetic dreams are, however, to be classified as mere coincidences. Where Democritus had suggested that emanations from future events could be sent back to the dreamer, Aristotle proposed that it was rather the dreamer's sense impressions which reached forward to the event. So, and we'll get into this more in sort of the more modern criticism as well, but the idea is that after you have the dream, like your dream might be based on things that you know in the real world could cause something, and then when those things do cause that thing, it could seem premonitory. And then, yeah, perfect. So in the 17th and 19th century, the term precognition first appeared, in the 17th century specifically, but it didn't come into common use among investigators until much later. An early investigation into claims of precognition was published by the missionary, friar, I believe that title is, P. Bolat in 1883. He claimed to have put an unspoken question to an African witch doctor whom he mistrusted. Contrary to his expectations, the witch doctor gave him the correct answer without ever having heard the question. So this witch doctor appeared to know the future, and that was quite something to Friar Bolat in 1883. Sigmund Freud alluded to dreams that predict the future or seem to predict the future in his The Interpretation of Dreams, which is pictured there before being translated into English. And he writes, "It is interesting in this connection to observe that the popular belief that dreams always foretell the future is confirmed. The future which the dream actually shows us is not the one which will occur, but the one which we would like to occur." And that was written in 1901. And of course that would hold true for some cases of premonitory dreams, but it certainly wouldn't hold true for some of the ones that my viewers sent me, and some of the others that I've read. The writer Mark Twain dreamt that his brother was dead in a coffin, in which he was holding a bouquet of white flowers with a red rose. After a few days, his brother, Henry Twain, was sailing with a boat on the Mississippi River, and it caught fire, causing his brother's death from severe burns. The coffin and the bouquet of white flowers with a red rose were the same as in Mark Twain's dream. One thing that's a bit odd about that is I thought Mark Twain was like a pen name, so why does his brother have his pen name surname? Maybe I'm wrong about that. Anyway. In the early 20th century, J.W. Dunn, a British aeronautics engineer, experienced several dreams which he regarded as precognitive. He developed techniques to record and analyze them, identifying any correspondences between his future experiences and his recorded dreams. He reported his findings in his 1927 book, An Experiment with Time. In it, he alleges that about 10% of his dreams appeared to include some element of future experience, which doesn't sound super convincing. To me, this is a personal thing. He persuaded his friends to try it with mixed results. In 1932, he helped the Society for Physical Research to conduct a more formal experiment, but he and the Society's lead researcher, Theodore Besterman, failed to agree on the significance of the results. There were many more studies, and I omitted them, but in 1932, Charles Lindbergh's infant son was kidnapped, murdered, and buried among trees. The psychologists Henry Murray and D.R. Wheeler tested precognitive dreams by inviting the public to report any dreams they had of the child that was kidnapped. A total of 1,300 dreams were reported. Only 5% envisioned the child dead. Only 4 out of the 1,300 envisioned the location of the grave as being amongst trees. So this number was then sort of statistically thought to be no better than chance. Many other experiments have been done, as I mentioned, and they were shown to have either flawed research methodology or in some cases outright fraud with tampering with the results. In the later 20th century, David Ryback, a psychologist in Atlanta, used a questionnaire survey approach to investigate precognitive dreaming in college students. His survey of over 433 participants showed that 290, or 66.9%, reported some form of paranormal dream. He rejected many of these reports, but claimed that 8.8% of the population was having actual precognitive dreams. G.W. Lambert, a former council member of the SPR, proposed 5 criteria that needed to be met before an account of a precognitive dream could be regarded as credible. The dream should be reported to a credible witness before the event. Makes sense. The time interval between the dream and the event should be short, and I believe this is to reduce if you wait for forever, eventually maybe something will happen that's like your dream. So if it's a short interval, then it makes it more believable. 3. The event should be unexpected at the time of the dream. 4. The description should be of an event destined literally and not symbolically to happen. And 5. The details of the dream and the event should tally. So they should be the same. In the 21st century, in 2011 specifically, psychologist Daryl Bem, professor emeritus at Cornell University, published findings showing statistical evidence for precognition in an upper-tier journal, the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. The paper was heavily criticized, and criticism widened to include the journal itself and the validity of the peer review process. So people really aren't so open to these ideas. Public controversy over the paper continued until 2012, when the results were published of an independent attempt to reduce Bem's results, which failed to do so. So criticism. So as mentioned before, violation of natural law. So the idea that the chain of causality wouldn't allow for this to occur. So if you had knowledge of the future, it would change the future, essentially. Also, there's been sort of a lack of rigorous evidence. There's been, as I've just alluded to, many examples of, studies where people were looking into this, but then when they dug a little deeper each time, it seemed a little fishy. And then there are alternative explanations for these dreams in many cases. Of course, we can't necessarily account for all cases, which is, I don't want to completely kill the dreams, as it were, by doing this presentation. I like the idea that maybe there's something we haven't figured out, but some of the alternative explanations include déjà vu, so falsely recalling a memory of a vision as having occurred before the event. That's what déjà vu is thought to be. So you see something and you feel like you've seen it before. Actually, you're just remembering it. Even like as it's happening, you're remembering it as having seen it before. As well, unconscious perception. So this is when people unconsciously infer from data that they have unconsciously learned that a certain event will probably happen in a certain context. So this is the one that I mentioned earlier. So, maybe, for example, you work in some basement somewhere and there's a dripping pipe and you have a dream where somebody is in the basement and they slip and they break their neck on some, other thing nearby. And maybe then somebody does slip and gets seriously hurt and you're like, oh, that was a precognitive dream. Well, that could be unconscious perception because you had reason to believe, even if you didn't think about it directly, your brain recognized that potential hazard and then it may have come to fruition. Self-fulfilling prophecy. So people unconsciously bring about the events of the dream. That's another one without realizing it, right? So they're focused on, let's say you have a dream where you're driving down the road at a certain point and then you mess up and you drive into the ditch, and then you'll be thinking about that the next time you're on that road, and then you actually make that happen because you're so busy thinking about that dream where you drove into the ditch that there you go, you drove into the ditch because you weren't focusing. Memory biases. This is another alternative explanation. So this is where people selectively distort past experiences to match subsequent events. So in this case, you're imagining the dream that you had incorrectly. So when it actually comes time, an event happens and maybe you had a dream that was similar to it or something, and you'll misremember it. Like, hey, I think I had a dream that this happened. And it's like, there you go, memory bias right there. Coincidence. This is another alternative explanation. I don't think I need to explain what a coincidence is. And then finally, retrofitting. So in this case, this is after the fact matching of an event to an imprecise previous prediction. So It's sort of like numerology, where you sort of use phony pattern recognition to pretend that that's, what your vague dream was about all along. Yeah, so you could just have a very vague dream, as dreams can tend to be. Although, as mentioned before, usually these precognitive dreams are thought to be very vivid, but you can just imagine that, hey, yeah, this maybe represented that, and one thing leads to another, and boom, you've decided that you've had a precognitive dream. But with that said, I'd like to believe that, there are cases, and obviously we're not studying every single case, so we don't know for sure. I'd like to believe that maybe there are cases of real precognition. And I have 2 viewer-submitted emails that I'd like to read now. Very, very good examples. So, viewer-submitted email 1. I had moved a long way to a new city. I had a dream that there was a flying fish in the sky above the new cityscape. Soon after I moved, I was invited to join some people at a cafe on a patio outside the art gallery. While I was there, I looked up and saw a sculpture of a fish on the roof above the gallery, as though it were in the sky. It looked and felt like the flying fish in the dream. So that's a nice example there. And, in terms of alternative explanations, we don't have a whole lot of background info on this one, but maybe, the individual saw a photo of the town or this particular gallery and maybe remembered it that way, something like that. Or it could have been precognition. We may never know. But thank you so much for sending that in. And then another longer example here. Some years ago, an Italian restaurant specializing in authentic pizza and pasta opened in a newly constructed plaza just north of Hyde Park in London. I was a patron on a number of occasions. It was a small, clean space with windows on 2 sides, and, from the tables, its large grill, suspended range hood, and pizza oven were all visible. It was noisy and inclined to be somewhat smoky, but the food was good, and it was close to home, and it had an intimate atmosphere. In about the winter of 2015-2016, I heard on the radio the sad news that the restaurant had caught fire after hours one night and had burned down, and much of the rest of the plaza with it. Over the next week or so, in speaking with several friends who knew Porcino restaurant, I passed on the sad news, and they were all surprised. They hadn't heard this news, and I thought that was odd. Perhaps 3 or 4 weeks after this, driving by the old Porcino site and remembering the fire, I turned to check the damage, but there was no damage. There was no evidence of a fire. Clearly, there had been no fire. Of course, I ran my thoughts back on how the fire came to be lodged as a fact in my mind, and as a complete and constituted memory. It was truly unsettling. If I could not trust a memory as clear and firm as this one, what other memories should I suspect? It was a recollection that I learned the news through radio news broadcast, but I could not have because it didn't happen. How else could I have come to this belief? Had I just dreamt it? On June 30th, 2016, Porcino restaurant and much of the rest of the restaurant's plaza burnt down in a massive fire. This is real life. This is not a dream. The news came to me in a radio news report. I drove out shortly after to confirm it with my own eyes. This took some processing. In the weeks and months after that, as the original foreshadow of the fire and the actual event both became receding memories, I began to doubt the first premonition. Could I have imagined or dreamt a premonition after the actual fire? No. I believe that I was troubled by the premonition to such a degree that my mind was looking to manufacture a more logical explanation, and while the smoky atmosphere in the restaurant may explain how a foreshadowing dream or imagining of a fire arose, it doesn't explain for me how it lodged as such a clear and solid event and then memory in my mind. It had persisted in my mind for several weeks until I saw with my own eyes that the building was still standing. And that's a really interesting one to me, especially because there's at least half a year to a year and a half between the dream and the event. And it is a very specific enough event. That one almost feels maybe there's something there. Maybe that could be real. And again, you can imagine, that when they first, when the person who submitted this email first went to the restaurant, they identified that there was smoke, and they could have maybe identified that hazard, and that could have been how the nightmare came to be. But again, it's interesting how they recall the idea that it felt so real, and it had committed itself to memory. It felt like an actual memory rather than just a dream. Very, very interesting. But that's it for the presentation this week. Hope you enjoyed that. Hi, Marcos. My mom had a dream either before we were all born, her 5 children, or when we were all young, that a ferry boat at a local blew up and burned with us on it. Sorry, suddenly I can't read. So we will never go back to that ferry. Did it ever blow up, though? Maybe I misread that. She had the dream of that happening, but did it actually happen? Spooky. Oh, local park. Yeah, at a local park. Okay. If you work in a basement somewhere with a dripping pipe, something really bad already happened. Honestly, go into the basement of any old science building on any university, and it's just pipe city. Nothing but pipes, and often a lot of dead cockroaches that escaped. Sorry, I'm a bit late. Oh, that's all right. You can always play back the VOD. Oh, you saw the Porcino fire. That's cool. Now, I'd like to get into some Reddit nightmares. And I've also, not just from the nightmare subreddit, but I found another subreddit called Dream Interpretation. So I felt like we might be able to, provide some value there. So I'll maybe try to draw a few from there. But there were a bunch of nightmares that looked really good to me. So we're going to go for those first, I think. And also I made a handy chart here, as you can see. So this is sort of going to help us with nightmare interpretation as we read these dreams. So this is from episode 6, I think it was, where we talked about nightmare interpretation. I just kind of summarized it in this chart, although it's a bit small, but we'll be able to bring that up to help us with the dreams, so that I'm not just struggling to remember. All right, so let's get into some. This is a post by a user named international_day457. The post is titled, "A recurring dream I have that freaks me out." The post reads, "Every so often, I experience bouts of lucid dreaming where I'm aware of the fact that I'm asleep and in a dream, but I can't control what happens in my dreams like some people claim to. It always starts off with me being aware of the fact that I'm in a dream when something starts to go wrong. I usually tell myself something along the lines of, 'It's okay, this is a dream, there are no real consequences here, I just need to wake up.' I almost always end up trying to run away from something in the dream, but while I'm running, I keep telling myself over and over again that all I have to do is wake up. But I can't make myself wake up, no matter how much I feel that I need to. And I usually end up freaking out in my dream, scared that I'm not in a dream and that I'm awake and truly in danger. Ooh. Sometimes I have false awakening loops while I'm experiencing this, where I think I've woken up in a dream, but I'm actually still asleep. I think, okay, that was a dream, but I'm finally awake now. But in reality, I'm still asleep and dreaming. This can happen up to 3 times before I finally wake up for real. Or so you think. Whenever I'm actually awake, I'm always exhausted and upset. Sometimes I experience bouts of nightmares, where I have nightmares for multiple days in a row, and a lot of dreams are very vivid, both of which leave me feeling exhausted when I wake up. But the lucid dreams and false awakening loops are what upset me the most. Does anyone else have any experience with this?" Well, let me just pull up my handy chart. So I don't know if I've ever had a lucid nightmare where I wasn't able to escape. I did have, as I've talked about in previous episodes, somewhere I recognized it was lucid, and then I was able to bodily fly into the air, and then after a countdown I was able to wake, like almost like reverse hypnotism. I was able to snap myself out of it. And I've had false awakenings before. I know many of my viewers have had as well. I haven't had quite that many loops of false awakening in a row. But in terms of what's going on in your dream, I'd love to know what's chasing you, because you're describing that it's a chase dream. And if I were to look at my chart here, what does that mean? I think that's one of the ones that I remember, actually. Yeah, it indicates that you're trying to avoid some confrontation in real life. And the manner in which you flee or hide may indicate the manner in which you avoid conflict in real life. Something to maybe think about. But again, it doesn't really say what you're running from. And also, usually in a lucid nightmare, like if lucidity is something that occurs in your nightmare, like that makes sense that you can't control it, because otherwise it wouldn't be a nightmare. And that is usually how lucid nightmares go. That's about it. It's kind of a technical dream. Like you're having a lot of like technical challenges within the realm of the dream in terms of the false awakenings and the different complications that you're experiencing. But yeah, I'm not seeing an entirely lot of dream substance. Again, I'd love to know what's chasing you. All right, let me put my chart away and read another one. This is a post by Jacob_Crozier. I'm pretty sure this is the third nightmare we've read from him. The title is I Drowned. The post reads, I was on the roof of a building. I was running towards safety, but that demon, it becomes so fast. I've known this demon since I was 6. I was choke-slammed really hard onto the ground. I couldn't fight back, but all I saw were its eyes. Crimson, bloodshot eyes. I had a chance to kick it as hard as I could, and then ran and ran. I felt a claw or blade sticking it straight into my back. I was thrown towards the floor. Then it pulled my hair and smashed my face into the floor again. I couldn't scream or speak. The next thing I remember was being thrown into a pool, and everything became pitch black. So that was a bit of a short one. I actually chose this one intentionally, though, because I knew that it would really let me use my dream chart. So there was a lot of themes in that one. So being chased, so he's trying to avoid something, right? Demon isn't really one. There's dark figures, but I'm not going to call this a dark figure. And then drowning nightmare indicates that you're overwhelmed with emotion, or you're repressing some desire or thought, which is also congruent with the fact that you're running away from something, that you're avoiding something or repressing something. Right, but it's specifically you're upset with an abundance of emotion, and then at the end you couldn't speak, which is a silent scream, so you feel like you don't have a voice, or you aren't being heard in real life, or you feel helpless or frustrated with some situation. So all of these sound like there is something. They all actually combine with there's something you're avoiding. And what's interesting is that it's a demon. So it's kind of hard to pin that down to something in real life, but whatever that is, that situation or whatever that's troubling you, that must be some real serious business. That's what I have to say about that. Sorry, it occurs to me I forgot to read the chat after the last one. One of my comments is missing. I'm sorry, I can't help with that. That's Google's problem. It did not happen because I did not go on the ferry. Okay, so that's talking about that comment about the dream where your mother imagined the ferry exploding or whatever. All right, so you're saying that it couldn't happen because you weren't there. You weren't there to bring the lighter. Fair enough. It did not happen, so it wasn't a premonitory dream. Yeah, that's true. That does make sense. Yeah, I guess it's the idea though is that maybe it would have been if you'd been there, right? But what was strange was that she had a dream before we moved to London, and When we arrived there, she saw the ferry at Springbank Park and was like, this is the one from the dream. Interesting. I like that. Therefore, I've never been on that ferry, and I expect to die if I ever do. Well, sometimes you just gotta march to the beat of your own drum. Maybe you're onto something. Is that ferry still there? I'm curious. Find out. Do some digging. In the meantime, let's read us another nightmare. Okay, sorry. This is a post by a user called killchip_2022. That sounds kind of familiar as well. The title is, So Many of My Nightmares Are Apocalyptic and Dystopian. The nightmare reads, I had a nightmare while napping today. I'm just writing what I remember here. First, we were visiting my family in Florida. I somehow managed to sleep through almost all of our vacation, and I felt terrible. At one point, I was hanging with my sister, and she did something that caused me to have flashbacks to previous trauma. Not going to go into detail about that. At one point, it floated around our family that someone was trying to take over the world. He said that a girl named, I don't remember, would arrive upon Earth, and then 2 weeks later, her friend Abby would appear. Once they were together, the world would be destroyed with a hellstorm. Everyone thought it was some psycho and that it would blow over, but I wasn't so sure. After that, I ended up in an abandoned amusement park bought by a millionaire, sorry, I almost said billionaire, so he could turn it into his own business. Him and his assistant were showing me what and a few other people around, and I felt incredibly uneasy the whole time. Suddenly, a voice came from the sky after it began to rain, possibly blood. And he said that the first girl had arrived, and he needed people to complete tasks for him so that he could prepare for the second girl's arrival. I couldn't hear anymore before I was guided into a sewer and told to take shelter there. I did as I was told and came across a spacious underground where other people were huddled. We all sat together and tried to laugh and make ourselves feel better, but all we could really think of was our impending death. After a while, some of the man's cronies came down with some chips for us. We had to complete a small ritual before we could get the food, and then we scrambled for it like savages. That's when my sister woke me up, bless her. I don't know how much more of that I could take. I woke up from the nap more, and then I started to... I messed up the end, but it's just the end anyway. We're not going to worry about that. Yeah, so that's a spookier apocalypse dream than I was expecting it to be. When I first read that title, I was anticipating, just maybe a big meteor coming down or a nuke going off or something. But it's like, it almost sounds like the Antichrist is what it reminded me of, with like the arrival of the first girl and then the second girl. Or it's actually sort of, isn't that what happens in like Christianity or the Judeo like Christian religion, or Islam specifically maybe, where Muhammad's not coming back, but Jesus is coming back, and then he will end the world, or what's it called in Christianity, where the apocalypse? I should know this. The rapture, that's what it is. Yeah, it reminds me a bit of the rapture, because there's like a person arriving on Earth and then the world is ending. By the way, 11 viewers, that's like the biggest I've ever been, so I'm feeling a little nervous, but that's all right. The ferry is long gone. All right, so you're safe. You're safe, unless it just appears in your backyard, and then you'll know that you're doomed. Yeah, but in terms of, if we consult the chart for that last nightmare, so apocalypse dreams, I guess natural disasters or weather could be what we refer to that as. You're stressed or upset about something, could be anything. Apocalypse dreams can indicate that a big change is happening in your life. So that could be the interpretation for that. But again, it's not the standard apocalypse, so maybe we'll leave that be and just read another dream. This is a post by a user named DZ Astros. The post is titled, Whispering Green Lady on the Bed. The post reads, I dreamed that I heard a lawnmower outside my house. I saw a man pushing a lawnmower on my lawn. Beside the driveway was my lawnmower, disassembled. And I was pondering my mower when a delivery truck stopped. He had 2 books for me, unwrapped. He said, It's your book club. I needed to get to the bottom of both things, but since my first problem was someone mowing my lawn, I walked in to see when I joined the book club. As I walked past my room, I saw that there was a man on the edge of my bed. Sitting next to him was a green woman, thin, dark green with yellow eyes. He was sleepily lolling his head back and forth while she was whispering in his ear. I started yelling, Open your eyes, open your eyes, and then awoke to my wife saying, You're dreaming, DZ. Interesting. That is freaky. I wonder, was her actual skin green? Maybe some sort of reptilian thing. Yeah, the rapture, thanks. Sorry, just responding to a comment. Yeah, well, clearly this is an example of sleep talking, so we know that you had this, either that you have REM sleep disorder or that you had this in deep sleep, so you're a sleepwalker, or maybe this is as far as it goes for you. But yeah, that's definitely freaky. I wonder what she was whispering about. I don't think that I don't think any of the themes in this dream are something that we can discuss on our dream interpretation chart. But yeah, I wonder what she might have been whispering to him. It almost seems like a siren or one of those, mythical creatures, a succubus, just seducing him into something terrible while he's in a trance. Interesting. Oh, in the comments, wife said I was doing the no mouth voice. The dream wasn't a nightmare until bam, green lady whispering. Wow, that's actually even freakier. That it wasn't even a nightmare until the green lady just suddenly showed up and just, what is going on? I like that one. This is a post by a user named Ryan_2281. The post is titled, Scary Dream. The post reads, I know it's kinda dumb, and I'm embarrassed to say I'm scared of a movie character, but there's one dream I had of Pennywise the Clown that has stuck with me. Me and a team of random people I've never met began exploring some kind of house. Each one of them has had their individual quirks, but the only one I can remember is some weird chick with a boa constrictor. Anyway, we're walking down a hallway, and all of a sudden there's laughing. Next thing I know, I'm sitting in my best friend's living room watching this, and on his TV with him and his mom. The TV screen says, Close your eyes. My friend's mom then informs us to close our eyes. This part of the dream, I was in third person, and I saw me with my eyes closed, and Pennywise the Clown on TV telling me in his menacing voice to open my eyes over and over again. I then wake up with my eyes closed, and it almost feels like there is a presence in the room with me, and I'm sitting on the bed, in bed, with my eyes closed until I feel the presence recede. This last part is happening post-dream. I know it may sound kinda dumb, but I just thought I'd share it and see what you guys think. I'm not suggesting anything supernatural, as all that stuff is BS. I was just trying to illustrate the fear I felt. I mean, my first thought about that last part is that maybe you're experiencing sleep paralysis. I don't know how you would be interpreting the presence, but I mean, with hypnagogic hallucinations, as we've seen in these previous presentations, you can hallucinate via any sense that you have. It could be visual, obviously not in this case because you haven't opened your eyes, but it can also be kinesthetic, right? There are many people in their hypnagogic hallucinations who feel like they're being dragged by their ankle out of the bed. Again, not going to suggest you do this because it's your funeral, but I would be curious to see what you would see if you were to open your eyes. Other than this, the dream is just very, very clearly maybe watching too many scary movies, or maybe you have a weaker constitution towards scary movies. I'm curious to know in the chat what scary movie or horror movie that you've seen has messed you up the worst. For me, it was Mirrors with Kiefer Sutherland. And in that one, the scenes are... Some of the scenes that like messed me up the worst were just not the ones where there's a demon running around in the mirrors, but the ones where he's just like looking at the mirror, or somebody else is looking in the mirror, and then he's just doing his thing in the mirrors, acting as it normally would, just reflecting him. And then at some point he does something and the mirror doesn't follow him, but just watches him. That messed me up. And like, I think for like 5 years after that, I literally like would not want to go to the bathroom at night because I was afraid of, what the mirror would be doing. And like, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror ever when I was brushing my teeth. I was just like, if it's just staring at me, I don't even want to know. I'd rather just stay in the dark. Mirrors, yeah. There's another one that I actually didn't even watch. Like, I just watched, like, I read like a synopsis of it, and that was Hereditary, because it just seemed too scary. Like, I just watched like the trailer of it and like a review of it, actually. Yeah, just like, that's enough for me. Like, I feel messed up just listening to the review. All right, this is a bit of a longer one, but it seems intense, so I wanted to check it out. This is a post by a user named Brogba420. The post is titled, "I was viciously attacked by a cat and I felt physical pain. I killed the cat in the end." The post reads, "I just woke up from this 5 minutes ago. I'm still shook, but slowly starting to calm down. The dream started with me being in a weird location. For some reason, I was tired and had the blinds down. I felt anxious and wanted to hide from my neighbors. My girlfriend suddenly came in, and we were going to go into the main house. As we approached the house, the ones we're renting from saw us on the second floor terrace and waved. Makes more sense than my brain was trying to make it make. Again, a rush of anxiety came over me, and I rushed into the house. It was my grandparents' old cabin. Suddenly, they were standing behind me and introduced some people. They were apparently at a house showing, and it seemed that they were kicking us out, but they were all super friendly. Our landlords started showing the house from the outside, and I went to the bathroom to hide because I felt very anxious. My dad was sitting on a chair there, petting a cat which was in his lap. I laid down on the floor and tried to hide behind stuff, not to be seen by people being showed around. Some time went by, and I was like, okay, I can't hide in the bathroom, this is pathetic. I stood up and petted the cat on the head as I was about to leave. It bit me in the thumb as I moved my hand away and buried its claws in my hand. This was very painful, and I tried to escape, but it didn't let go. It literally hung from my arm as I tried to leave the bathroom, and it ended with me throwing it full force of me into the other room. I looked at my hand, and there were deep bite marks into my finger and through my thumb, but no blood. I hurried to close the door as it rushed towards me, and I just managed to shut it. I heard some noises, and suddenly it popped out of the ventilation system. It was furious and jumped at me, biting the same hand. The same pain, but I was much more afraid. I managed to throw it off me and escaped into a bathroom nearby. I started scratching the door and walked back and forth outside, wagging its tail. It did that. I was terrified. This cat had a mission to kill me. It realized there was a big enough opening in the door and squeezed under. It managed to scratch me, and I ran out into the bathroom again. Even though I knew of the ventilation system, it happened and I was prepared. I ran out and shut the door. I still managed to get out, and at this time I found a duvet to block the hole. I felt it pushing into it, and the cat was so strong. The head popped out, and I started to strangle it. I first squeezed a bit, and it bit my hand as I was doing it. I squeezed hard, and for this horrific scream from the cat that sounded almost human. I also felt its neck get soft and weird. Ugh. That's called cervical dislocation, by the way. The dream ended, and I was strangling it, about to kill it. Worth mentioning, throughout the attack, I was anxious that the people in the house would find out. Very strange. That was exactly what I was going to suggest, is that this is about social anxiety. Because he's hiding. I mean, I have anxiety too. I've never had to hide in the bathroom, luckily, but, you know. Yeah, I was thinking that it was social anxiety, though, because even once you finally get up the courage to leave the bathroom, there's now all of a sudden a situation where you're basically like in a no-win scenario, because you have to kill the cat, because it's like a demonic cat and it's chasing you like the alien from Life, that the movie Life, which is also what it reminded me of with the ventilation system. But you know that if you do fight back, you're going to be socially ostracized because it's somebody's cat, but it feels like a no-win scenario. And I know that feeling when I'm in, you know, if my like supervisor or whatever is giving a presentation and I know that I'm up next or something, and it's like, it's a situation where you feel like you can't actually get out of, because of that's what the social laws dictate, right? Yeah, but it's kind of a no-win scenario, if you will. Yeah, and being chased. I wonder if you also have a fear of cats. I didn't really get that sense from this, though. Hereditary wasn't super scary. Fair enough. This is a post by a user named God of Ostrichs. The post is titled, "Had the worst dream I've ever had." The post reads, "Okay, so I'm shaking and staying up to avoid these dreams again. My dream was me traveling around this tiny bridge city, like those wooden bridges over giant rocky cliffs, and I go to my best friend's house. I walk in his room and see those dogs again. Those dogs, man. These dogs laying on his bed had extremely sharp artificial human jawlines. Oh, with standard fur all on their face and neck. The main dog I looked at was black, but had white on his face near his jawline and cheeks. Very sharp, precise fur lines, doing that microblading. That I added that, sorry. Sharp, precise fur lines, sorry, and they were laying sideways on the bed like humans, staring at me. Uncanny valley, that's freaky. The vagueness of these dogs' chiseled faces staring back at me. So I tell my friend in a broken, scared, kind of shaky voice, "What the fuck is that dog, James? What is wrong with that dog?" I started to raise my voice as I ask him and begin to scream and start swinging at this giant, black-furred human dog in terror, just trying to fight or kill it. Something about their faces, man. I don't like those dogs' faces. Literally shivering in fear and bawling my eyes out while typing this. I've always had a lot of dreams where something vague triggers a realization, and a giant wall of fear and dread hits me, and I scream. Then it transitions into the next dream, and I bolt awake sweating. If you read this, I could really use some acknowledgement or something right now. Just say anything. If any of y'all understand the vague horror of things in dreams and how shattering they can be, please empathize with me. Every time I think about that dog, man, more tears just flow and cold shivers radiate through my whole body. Jeez. I mean, I don't know if I've ever had anything quite like that, to be honest. So I don't mean to laugh, but My first thought is just when you describe these dogs with their chiseled human jawlines, I'm kind of imagining that meme where it's like a Shiba and then there's like a beta one and then an alpha one that has like a huge jacked body. I'm imagining these just like alpha dogs. They didn't attack you though, did they? I think it was just like an uncanny valley thing, maybe, like where you see something that looks like human when it shouldn't, or just so close to being human that it's disturbing. Again, I don't think I have anything for this on my chart of nightmare interpretation. This seems like something that's a bit out of my league to interpret, to be honest, but pretty interesting. Let me read one from Dream Interpretation subreddit. So this is a post by a user named infinite-nectarine. The post is titled, "Is this lucid? Night terror? Someone help me out." The post reads, "I need some help interpreting this dream. So last night, I had an odd dream. I dreamt that I was on my phone in bed watching a video with the volume on, and as it got progressively louder, I started to fear that I would wake my family. I started to tell myself over and over that it was just a dream. I've been able to do this in the past with nightmares, and when I was a kid, I could force my eyes open with my fingers." Wow. "Where things got weird, I guess, is I consciously realized I was dreaming. I physically felt a strong vibration throughout my body to the point where it was uncomfortable. Not quite pins and needles, like a hardcore cigarette buzz. As soon as the vibrations ended, it then felt like my eyes were staring at the foot of my bed, getting stared back at by 4 human-like figures of varying heights with dim, glowing yellow, steampunk goggle-esque eyes. I couldn't shake this for what seemed like an eternity, whether my eyes were open or closed. I couldn't tell. Eventually, I awoke and was up for an hour or so, gripped with fear, until I fell back asleep. This all happened around 3 a.m. I tagged this as a nightmare because it was terrifying. Last time I experienced such a thing when I was a kid, having recurring falling dream with the same vibration. I never tried to find out about it though." So, if you've spent any time on this channel, you the viewers watching, you know this is 100% sleep paralysis. Like, he's got so many of the classic symptoms of sleep paralysis, right? So the vibrations, many people experience that in sleep paralysis, like all throughout their body. By the way, I have never really had sleep paralysis, but I've read a lot about this at this point. I'm becoming an expert on dreams and nightmares and all this kind of stuff from doing the show. As well, you have the visual hypnagogic hallucinations in the form of, these dark beings, dark creatures standing at the foot of your bed, humanoid. Again, classic symptom of sleep paralysis. 3, not being able to tell if your eyes were open or closed. So that tells me that you're in the hypnagogic state itself, which is it's like a state between being awake and being in a dream, right? Because the hypnagogic hallucinations that you're experiencing are essentially a dream that's being projected onto reality. And if you check out my older episodes, you'll see that it's because your motor neurons are paralyzed by an abundance of GABA, but you're still conscious. So you're just in a weird state, essentially. And then the 4th thing that I noticed is you said that in like previous years when you had dreams similar to this, it was when you were a kid, you'd have the same feeling of vibrating, and it was accompanied by the feeling of falling. So that would be a kinesthetic hypnagogic hallucination. So that's just another hallucination that you can have. Some people experience being dragged by the ankle out of bed, and they actually feel like the back of their hair is moving up forward, like along the pillow. Some people experience like they're floating above themselves, like where they would be lying, that type of thing. So, easy peasy. I know exactly what's going on there. All right. This is a post by a user named throwaway294736189. The post is titled, "Violent Nightmares Since I Was a Child. Any advice about how to make them stop?" Posting on a throwaway because I don't want to be doxxed on my reel. Not sure if this is the right sub, but I'd appreciate any help. Okay, cool. I have recurring nightmares where I kill people in excruciatingly gruesome ways because it's the only way to get out of a situation or save myself. The most recent was stabbing someone close to me to death with a 3-pronged plug. They aren't always violent, but I'm always scared, running from people, hiding. I've been having horrible nightmares since I was a child, after a bad preventing kidnapping seminar at my elementary school. Sometimes I don't dream at all, and sometimes it will be months and months of nightmares. They are so invasive, and I can't stop thinking about them all day. I just always in the back of my mind. Has anyone experienced this? Has anything helped? People have told me I can take control of my dreams, that I just don't know how to do that, so become lucid. That's freaky. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't really recall what it means if you are the one being violent, and I know that it isn't on my chart because I talked about it in episode 4, and episode 6 is what I based the chart on, but it definitely means something if you're violent towards other people in your dreams. You also are saying that you're running away, so that you're trying to avoid something, for sure. One thing I do remember from the presentation in episode 4, and I will have to add those themes to my chart, but one thing that I remember is that when you have a violent dream where you are the aggressor, it's a lot less common to have those dreams being a female, and she does say that she's a female earlier in the post, so that's a bit unusual. I'm curious about this bad preventing kidnapping seminar at elementary school. Like it's just a, to the untrained eye, to me reading this, that sounds like it's trying to help you, so it's hard to imagine what went bad about that. I'd be curious to know. I've never cried from a dream unless it was about a real dead person, nor have I had shivers from a dream. Space alien visit. That this is referring to the previous dream about the hypnagogic hallucinations. Yeah, I can imagine the sleep paralysis feeling like a space alien visit. The researchers also found that people who dream of killing others tend to be hostile, introverted, and often don't get along well with others. There it is. I don't know if any of that's true, but that was, a little bit of research done in my chat. Thanks for that. Yeah, I don't know how much antisocial behavior you feel like you participate in, but yeah, maybe see someone about that. I don't know. Oh, it's 9:58. Time flies by when you're having fun. Oh, one more chat. Maybe had not occurred to her she could be kidnapped until that seminar in school. Oh, I see. So it's just reconsidering what the words mean in the order they were listed. Yeah, that maybe she was kidnapped. I mean, yeah, certainly you would imagine that if you're kidnapped, that you would certainly have dreams where you have to be violent to something in order to escape a situation. And that would suddenly make a lot more sense. Like, I would definitely understand where those nightmares are coming from in that case. But yeah, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm very pleased that we hit 11 concurrent viewers. That's big news for me. So next week we're going to be talking about, let me check my itinerary. I'm thinking of doing dreams from the ancient world. I couldn't find too much on nightmares from the ancient world, and there's going to be also a lot of talk of oniromancy, which is a lot of people in the ancient world believed that their deities were speaking to them through their dreams. So that will be what we're talking about next week. And then for week 10, I found a really, really scary topic that I'm really looking forward to. So don't look it up because I'm going to present on it in 2 weeks from now. So episode 10 is going to be about the men in the hat. which is, I believe it's like modern folklore from like the age of the internet, but it's about nightmares. So it's actually like I did like some basic reading on it, and it looks like it's going to be real scary. So I think that'll be a good one. As always, if you want me to read your nightmare on my stream, feel free to send it to theforgottengrove@gmail.com. I can credit you however you want to be credited. I can keep you anonymous if you want, however you want to do it. And again, thanks so much for tuning in. And until next time, embrace the beautiful dark.